Okay, thank you. The CSE is Economical and Social and Environmental Council of Senegal. It's an advisory board to the government. Thank you to the Global Lands Forum for inviting us. Thank you, Mr. Scott Goodson. We like your presentation. You know, in Senegal, when you don't agree with something, you are not going on strike. You just wear red. So I like the idea of wearing red glasses because you can say, no, we want to do something different. I would like to invite some young people on stage. But before of that, I would like to tell them how proud we are of you. Because some young people decided to leave the country because they don't believe. Maybe they think that there is no hope because they think that they can do nothing. But you decided to stay, and that's really wonderful. I would like to call Mr. Charles Bates. He's from Uganda. He created a movement, the tree adoption tree, try to plant trees, train kids, create a movement. Welcome, Mr. Charles. You can have a seat. The second one is a lady. She's from Chad, Mrs. Indy, who is a president of an association of indigenous knowledge. She wrote many documents. She's working on climate change. I think I met her one day in Honolulu. By going to Honolulu at the IUCN meetings that I break my leg. That's the reason why I work slowly. So you can have the floor. You can have a seat. The last one is a wonderful lady. She is a Miss Rwanda. And her name is Honorine. So Honorine, she's an advocate because she's trying to help for reconciliation in her country, and she's going also to talk about her movement. Okay. Yes, have a seat. Okay, you can sit. So the presentation before reminded us that it is urgent to take action for the environment and to create movement to restore our landscapes. Yesterday, Sadhguru advises us that sustain this movement, we need to build trust and connect with people, but also we need to think about spirituality. Earlier today, we celebrate the legacy of Wangari Maathai, who started by fighting in her country about invasive species and create her movement, and at the end, become a Nobel Prize. A lady like us is for many of us African a role model. She shows us that land degradation is not a destiny. We are here, as I said before, some young people like the one we have here today, who have started and succeeded restoration initiatives. And like many others who choose to migrate, they had the strength, the courage, the determination, the engagement to swing into action and make a change. They started with nothing but their own bravery. As they built association, it became a group, then a coalition, and now a movement. Thank you to the Global Forum to let us know and learn about their experiences and to build on their proven results and scale up their innovation. Mr. Charlebat, the founder of Tree Adoption in Uganda, helps many kids. So I would like to ask you, Charles, a question. You know that it is a strong external influence on the management of African natural resources. How can we ensure that people within each landscape are doing better, are becoming decision makers and power brokers? What can you do as a person who starts a movement?
Thank you very much.
You can sit if you prefer.
Hindu started a movement here where we will be standing for the rest of the session, so we are following her. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so to begin, I would like to mention two critical aspects that I feel are imperative in changing individuals or stakeholders at the lowest level. For example, in my work, the smallholder farmer, I feel my responsibility is to educate or to help my fellow smallholder farmers understand the value of their landscapes, the values that are concerned. We just watched a video of Wangari Maathai starting a movement simply because the government of the day did not value the resource as much as the people she had trained to value this resource. I think that is what I would think would be imperative in achieving this.
Okay, thank you. So Mrs. Indu Umaru, the coordinator of the Indigenous Women, what is the pathway for influence? What action can be taken by innovators like you who work with indigenous people?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I would like to thank the GLF for this special gathering, who give us this space, like all of us sit together. You can be a politician or an indigenous person coming from the community like me to be in the same chance speaking and sitting there. So as indigenous people, so you know, firstly, what can make the influence is giving us voice. Because we want people listening from us. What's going, it was people who are talking about us and taking our voices, maybe do not interpret it exactly what we mean and what we want. So giving us more space and our full and effective participations, that can make influence and change the things, because we are the one who can carry to whatever that we want as change, and who know also better our community, better our land, our landscape, and how we restore it. Let me tell you that indigenous peoples are more than 400 million around the world, and we are keeping most of the biodiversity, and we are around all the landscape, desert, forest, mountain. We are in all the oceans. So then we know well our environment, because our life and livelihood depend from it. So if we talk ourselves and we better influence the movement, let me give you another example of the Paris agreements. 20 years of the negotiations, they didn't give space to indigenous peoples. But for the first time in Paris, when they give us these 5 references, what's happened? Just in Marrakesh, we had a big movement where we talked about the implementation of the Indigenous Peoples Knowledge Platform. We come here in the COP23, just 1 month ago, in this room. It was the COP presidency, SAPSTA, all of them stand up and talk about the decision of indigenous peoples' outcome. But this is the political maybe influence. But what is needed is the action at the national and the local level. So that can make the difference, and that can make the influence in our peoples. And those actions need to be carried out by an indigenous peoples, indigenous person, and indigenous organizations. We are organized through the 7 regions, where we can make all the influence through our traditional way and the self-selection and identifications. And that's the only way we can have those actions happen in the ground, and that can make a lot of influence.
Okay, thank you, Indu. That's interesting. Mrs. Honorine, the African government and civil society are often characterized as weak on natural resources. Is this a fair judgment? What have been your experience when working with communities?
Thank you so much. How are you, everybody? Sure?
Sure.
Happy? Excited?
Yes.
I can't see the smiles. Come on. So what I'm going just to share right now is my experience with working with the communities. I've worked with minimalist communities, the ones that promote peace and reconciliation, as she has mentioned, the ones that promote that is for human activity, humanitarian activities, many other different organizations. But for the moment, I'm working with IUCN, promoting the forest and landscape restoration back in Rwanda, but also across Africa and even to the whole world at large. So we have a movement called FRL Youth Movement, and I would say that that is my favorite movement because it's all about trees, and trees are life. That's what I always say. Trees are life. Without trees, we can't live. Like the other session in FRL, one of the people mentioned that. So my experience working on this, I love always when I'm talking, when I use observation, things that I see. So my experience then, I want to give an example of yesterday when we were in the opening plenary, and then I was on Instagram just trying to make sure that people back home, they are seeing what we are doing here in Borne, who could not attend. So I went live on Instagram. Normally when I go live on Instagram for other purposes, I get more than 1,000 viewers, 1,000 followers coming to see what I am really broadcasting. Yesterday, 1,000 dropped, but again, I started seeing people going down, leaving. And later on, I stayed with only 5 people, watching what was happening here at GLF. And also my other observation that I had still yesterday in the evening, you see the FRL Pavio was distributing the cups, coffee cups. And it was branded FRL 100. Yes? Has anyone seen that? Has anyone received that? But then, yesterday in the evening, I have seen this. Some people were struggling to make sure that they hide the FRL 100 and stay with the reusable coffee cup that is not branded FRL 100. The FRL 100 was written here, and they were just trying to make sure that they showed the other side of the brand here. So, I don't know if you're really getting my point on this, but what I'm trying to say is that...
Explain, make it clear, so people more understand.
Yes.
Explain.
So what I'm trying to say here, I'm not blaming anybody, but working with communities, people have different mindsets. People have different interests. People have different things that they want to see, that they want to live around with, that they want to have around with. And it is not so easy to plant the seed of what you want in their minds. Just like one of the people was trying to hide the FRL 100. Yet that is the brand we are here to promote. Is my point clear?
Okay.
I doubt.
You will have time to explain better.
All right. So, different mindsets, working with communities, it's not so easy, but it all takes passionate people to drive the movement. Thank you.
Okay. We go back to Charles. Charles,
Yes.
it's very interesting to create a movement, but there are challenges. What about the organization? What about the funding? What about your priorities? What about your measurement? How you can succeed? How you can learn from you? You have to tell us. And I think this question we can be all of you three, you can explain based on your own feeling. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, allow me to preamble with the fact that in the history of our universe, we've not had as many young people as we have today. We have about 1.8 billion young people in the world today. But also, secondly, there has never been a generation as connected, a generation as creative and as proactive as we have today. In so many places of the world, there are several young people that are starting up organizations, enterprises, social enterprises, NGOs, to create social change within their communities. We here are just one of them. We represent the many. And one of the cross-cutting challenges of starting movements of this nature, as you say, is the financing.
Yes, sir.
Many young people have left their jobs, saved a little bit of money, and started a movement or an organization. Other young people have been stranded. They have brilliant ideas, but they have nobody funding them. Now, after the COP21, one of the biggest achievements we had was over 190 countries came together to sign an accord, which means that financial instruments should be available on an assumption. However, our challenge as young people in accessing this is the rigor that is needed, working with international corporations, working with the UN, who are mostly interested in either working with government or working with already established large institutions. And this is where individuals, stakeholders in landscapes have to critically invest in building capacity for young people. First of all, understanding who the young people are, what they are passionate about, what drives them, how and when they get or share information. That is imperative in creating mechanisms of empowering young people to move or create movements beyond their communities to movements that take on the world. When such financing instruments are made more inclusive for younger people, so that an individual who is starting a small-scale organization can also access this kind of funding, then young people will have the potential and the platform to do a lot more work than they are doing today. Secondly, to the young people themselves, many a times we tend to look at what we do not have. I have this idea, I would want to do this, but if I had this resource and that resource and this amount of money, maybe I would achieve it. My advice is, as a young person, do not look at what you do not have, but the little resource you have. It could be financial, it could be human resource. That is what your focus should be. And your key question should be, how do I use that limited resource to achieve my goal, to create my movement, to take it forward, to drive social change in my community? And lastly, many a times when we try to step out into the wilderness, to go out on our own, to start our own organization, we are scared. We fear to fail. We want each and everything that we do to be successful. It is imperative for us to understand that when we step out into the wilderness, in the uncharted waters, there is an opportunity to fail and an opportunity to succeed. But when we fail, the lessons we learn from failing are as equal in importance as the lessons we learn in success. So as young people we should try and ensure that we drive the fear of failing out of our own systems.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Indu, what can you add on this for your commitment and how we can share from your experience in terms of funding, in terms of organization?
Yeah, actually, for indigenous peoples, we are seeing the funding mechanism who are really leading from bigger to bigger. And as Charles said, all the mechanisms want to work with the government directly. But indigenous peoples are separate, and then they have a separate views. So how to access to this funding? Let me give you the example of the Green Climate Fund. So everybody are happy with the Green Climate Fund because it's a big mechanism having $1,000 and 1,000 millions of dollars who can combat climate change. But when you look just into the criteria, who can have access, you get this injustice between developing countries. You get this injustice among the developing countries, those who do not have the capacity. So forget about another organization, forget about indigenous peoples organizations. So there is zero window where the indigenous organizations who are doing the great work, protecting the environment, working the climate change, to get funding in order to implement. If some of us who have the capacity, then they say this is limited only to countries and they cannot get access. Indigenous peoples have dreams, they have ideas, they have brilliant innovations. We have that since thousands and thousands of years. It's really for us a duty to protect the environment. So we have this as heritage, but we do not have the direct access to funding. Okay. Another example is those funding are going to the mega project, like the mega electrification somewhere. Then you have like the mega agriculture, and all those as for us a false solutions, because people who are giving this money, they want to have profit behind. If they invest bigger, they can have bigger profit. But no, in environment, don't think about getting a price of money. Think about what is the profit beyond money that can sustain your environment, give you your safety and the safety of the next generations. This is the big profit who cannot have value. So how maybe they can create any small direct access to the indigenous peoples, a small project. And then the small project make a difference. Because all of us know all the civil society are the best one who are implementing the project. They do not have magic to do that because they are just honest. They're working with the peoples, the real peoples, real human beings, where they are implementing the needs of the peoples. But the mega project, half of the money going to the salary consultations, research and all, wasting time, how many years just to do one research to improve things. Half of the money going to the logistic, like they want to have a big car, they want to travel in business, they want to organize a big meetings and having all this. Then you have like little of this money who go back and then the project is done already. So the community never saw any kind of examples of implementations. Okay. I just came 3 days ago from the communities in Chad. Just in the center of Chad, still no one saw any colors of the birth certificate. No man or woman have a birth certificate. Is it normal? How many projects are there? But they know them, they have a voting bureau when there is election. And everybody beyond 18 can vote. So just like a small example in the life where access to the funding is very injustice, creating divisions and marginalization of the peoples where they cannot get like the right to survival. And finally, access to funding cannot limit just to a big organization, but also cannot marginalize a woman because women have the solutions in all the landscape protection, all the environment protections. And we saw that in our project. I did the 3D participatory mapping where we give a voices to women and then all the money in the project in the communities. Then they found that women have a lot of knowledge. And just what they don't have is resources.
Yes.
When we give the equitable resources, and then we can see all the difference in the implementation of the project. And then, of course, they are postponing 2020, 2030. And then by this time, when they postpone, we can see the difference, who are making the right work on the ground.
Okay, thank you. I think the idea of access to funding is really important. And after the Paris Agreement, you have the chance to learn about some new source of funding, but there are organizations like, the GEF, for example. They start this small grant program, and many organizations like your organization has the chance to have access. But all is not about money. All is about engagement. All is about motivation. All is about strength and courage like you did. So Honorine, do you have any concern about organization and funding organization, and what can you do to these young people who can start a movement like yourself?
Thank you so much. I just want to say, share an experience that I had very recently in Tanzania when we were on the East African Youth Leadership Summit. And we were just sharing about very many different things, but mainly coming back to our government and politics and policies and policymakers and parties and politicians, bringing all those things on the table. And this was a new concept that was lighted in that youth summit about the environmental protection, and I was there speaking. And my goal there was to make sure that by the time I will leave the summit, I will have an already established FRL youth movement. So it wasn't so easy because we were 6 countries in the house, and everybody was bringing up with his or her questions or problems, and all the time it all sounded as if the blame was coming to the government. The blame was coming to hire people, funding people, ABCD. But I believe that the real movements that are needed in the world are active movements, practically moving movements. The ones that take practical steps and actions, real actions, not necessarily talking and ABCD. So what I believe is that my experience with the movements is that when there are people, when there is will to work, there is always a way. And what I shared very recently is that everything that is good, it sells itself. With the funding, it all comes the way when there is something beautiful that you want to portray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So after this meeting, we are going to all to split. So what can we do in Africa to build like a strong movement? Are you thinking about creating something together? Or are you just going back to Rwanda or to Chad or to Uganda or to Senegal? What can we do to be together? What can we do to think that the African landscape is on our hands? We are not leaving other people doing for us. So what is your concern about creating a stronger movement? In each of you, you are at the local basis. But at the continental level, what can we do? This is one of the questions for you three. Charles?
Yeah, so moving forward and taking our actions from our individual communities, Rwanda, Chad, and Uganda, I think what is imperative for us in this century is to open up to the world. We live at a time of open source technology. We can live in a world of open source movements. When I've been asked in the past about my idea to scale up tree adoption Uganda, my answer has always been, I do not intend to travel across the world and set up tree adoption units all around. My ideal idea for a scale-up is for a young person in Peru, or a young person in Namibia, or a young person in Colombia to write to me and say, hey Charles, I learned about the work Tree Adoption Uganda is doing in Uganda. I want to establish Tree Adoption Peru, or I want to establish Tree Adoption Namibia. And I'm willing to give them a footprint or a blueprint of how I've created my organization and to see them replicate it in their own countries. That scales up Tree Adoption Uganda's model, that scales up Tree Adoption Uganda's impact across the world. Now, given individuals working with indigenous people, working with young people in Rwanda, there are a lot of elements between our different organizations that intersect, that are similar. It would be interesting for me, complexities of organizations notwithstanding, to see how Hindu can run a pilot of her activities with my organization in Uganda, to see how Wase would implement her own activities through my organization. In Uganda, I have structures already in place. I have facilities already in place, meaning they can easily facilitate what Wase or what Hindu would want to do. So this is the next level of collaboration I hope to see us young people in landscape taking on. Can I contact Wase and say, I want to establish or run a pilot of my innovation in Rwanda? Can I use your own resources? Can I use your own expertise? Can I use your own people in your country to test my solutions in your country?
Okay, so Indu, what do you think about this next future collaboration between you? What do you think about?
Yeah, of course. But just let me tell Charles. Charles, let us do not do pilot. Let us do the real actions. Because pilot, we don't need them. And between us, we can do the real action without pilot. It's our peoples. It's our land. We understand it. We don't need pilot to improve anything. Then I have faith on you and faith on her and faith of all the youth who are here. So let me respond to your questions. As indigenous peoples from Africa and as indigenous young, we have a dream. As African youth peoples, we have a dream. We're dreaming every time. But what we want is our dream to become reality, as you said.
Yes, sir.
This dream cannot become reality if the leaders do not have confidence on us. They need to trust us because we trust them. We are the future. We are changing the future. Long or soon, we are going to be the leader of Africa. And we have to lead the Africa with the ideas that we have. We have a very positive, innovative ideas. We never met, but we just connect automatically. And all the African youth connect very easily by all the facility through social media or through just seeing each other and wanting to change our continents. As indigenous youth, we have one thing who can make the difference. This is the indigenous people's traditional knowledge. Imagine 1 second, the Western education, link it with the indigenous people's traditional knowledge of Africa. That is a huge value that we can have. That can change everything because that can accelerate all the actions. It do not need money. We do not need to ask for money to do that because those knowledge are from us. We do have them. But how we can ensure this knowledge be transferred from one generation to another one? And that can help our dreams to become realities. How we can have direct access to the funding without going through the criteria, numbers, and you have to prove and improve every time in every actions. No, we have already proved everything. What we need actions. How many years that we give from all this disaster around the world, talking about all the environmental degradations, human rights violations, putting all the text. We have enough and enough of all the written papers. Because those decisions, they are written, putting it without implementation, take us always from worse to worse. So what we need is implementation in what exists already, giving confidence, empowering youth, and having trust on all our different and respective experience and expertise. And that together, I think we will change our Africa, just to trust the youth.
Okay, applause. So, Honorine, one of the last questions. Can you tell us what is the most effective tool to accelerate positive change on the ground?
The first thing that I would say is that the thing that changes the world, or the person who changes the world, it doesn't necessarily need to be a lot of people together. Only one person can start something and other people follow. So I would say that one tool that can accelerate a real change is a personal commitment from each individual who is in this room. We've had a lot of things, as she was saying, written things, amazing things. We probably don't even read about them, or we do read about them, but how far do we really get into implementation? So what I would recommend is personal commitment. Personally, what are you committed to implement? Not necessarily saying a community, not necessarily saying a society, not necessarily saying an organization, but what is your personal commitment? Are you going to share what you have learned from here to other people on the ground down there? Yesterday, I was discussing with one African from Kenya, I guess, and he was telling me that it's so sad that here, how many Africans are here. And actually, most of the Africans who are present here, it is because they study in German. So, Africans, how do we share information? Africans, how do we read about opportunities? Africans, how do we want to get involved and even make others get involved? So the first tool that I would recommend is to engage ourselves, but make sure that we also invite others to get involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So half a minute each, so we can wrap, because time is up. Okay, Charles?
Yeah, just to supplement.
A wish. 1 second, a wish. What do you wish for this creation of movement, how we can go forward? Give us a wish, so we can close the session.
Well, my wish is, that's a difficult question.
Yes, you have to find.
Yes.
If you don't have any, it's okay. You just give the floor to the lady.
I actually have a wish.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we've established that in the next 15 years also, the CEOs and the leaders that will make decisions that will shape our world are the millennials of today. So my wish is that the current stakeholders, the current people in power, appreciate that and build strong mechanisms to ensure that those millennials who in the next 15 years are going to make pertinent decisions that will affect our world are actually adequately prepared, they are adequately skilled, they are culturally sensitive to make those decisions. And to do that, we need to do two things. One is actually invest in them, invest in the millennial generation. And secondly, give them the platform.
Okay.
Go beyond inviting them to conferences, to giving them front row seats in decisions and formulation of policies that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much. Indu, make it very short. Huh?
Yeah, I wish to have peoples in the center of any decisions. Rights, justice, equity.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was so quick. Straight and point. My wish is that we can promote the brand in our daily lives. Not just because we came for the meetings, not because we came for the forums and conferences and everything, but in our daily lives. If, okay, how many of you liked this? That's a silly question maybe, but how many of you liked FRL cups? The branded FRL cups? Well, that is just an example that I'm building around, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's what I wanted to say. So what I want to say is, let us promote. I am pretty sure that probably some of you, to remember me, they will say, oh, the other one with this, right? So, but at least others who can remember you on the other side, let us maybe remember you with a branded T-shirt, an example, a branded cup for what you are promoting, a branded anything that is,
Okay.
you know, having the brand everywhere that of what you are really promoting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The reason why we are so proud of you, because as I said before, a lot of people like you decided to leave the country. And for us, the mothers of the kids is always painful. So when we see kids going, taking the boats, because they think that there is no hope, and killing themselves in the Atlantic Ocean or in the Mediterranean, it was terrific. But when we see people like you who think that it's possible, we just want to thank you because you have the strength, you have the engagement, you have the motivation to know that and to see and to tell to the world that Africa's future is in your hands. And you demonstrated that the reason why I will ask people like the World Bank, Karine said yesterday that we need information, innovation, and incentive. But the innovation, you had it. The information, you had it. Because when we started 25 years ago, it was not easy like today, when you have the Google Map, you have the Instagram, you have the WhatsApp, and everything is free. So you can share, you can turn around, you can make your decision viral, you can make your movement viral. And today, maybe in terms of investment, we need to do better. We need to think that climate or land degradation or biodiversity is a common asset. It's a common asset to the world. That's the reason why we need to think, we need to share, we need to learn from each other. We need also to encourage people like you. Am I right or no, Paula? I think that is important. Mr. Nasri, it's important to help, to push. A help is not just support, financial support, but help is be thinking, information, pushing. It's the prosperity. The prosperity is that we share. And the prosperity is not the money, it's just the knowledge. And you share with us your knowledge because of, Charles, what you do on the tree plantation, Madame Indu, what you did on indigenous knowledge, Honorine, our Miss Rwanda, beauty, beauty, but Miss Rwanda will help for reconciliation. Because it's always restoration and also recognition on peace, because the peace makes us go beyond our frontiers, beyond our limits. So that's the reason why I would like to thank you all. I would like to do my speech in French, but my friend Erika told me not to, so I tried to do my best in French. It was not so easy, but I did it. Okay, because I know that the audience is more German and English and French. So me, I started working as an NGO 25 years ago. I went to Rio plus 10, I went to Rio plus 20, and I don't think I can go to Rio plus 30, but I will try to because I'm getting older, but in my mind, I'm still young, I'm still running. We create the movement Green Jobs, and today we are working on the seascape because in my country, Senegal, it's not just a desertification, but we also have the climate change, we have the coastal erosion, and we need to fix people because my people are farmers, my people are fishermen, and if we don't help them, they're going to lose their cultural diversity. And that's the reason why we're staying there, we're staying home, and working and make it happen. I mean, make it happen. Voilà, merci beaucoup. We would like to thank you all. Merci beaucoup. Voilà. Okay. Congratulations, all of you. Merci. Okay. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci. C'était facile quand même. C'était un peu parfois difficile pour moi en anglais. Merci. I'm proud of you too. Merci. Thank you. Thank you.